You see here, kid? You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump. And you might think, what if I fall? Well, what if you don't?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, it's David with LTD Media. We're back. We had a brief little intermission for our podcast, the Now You Know podcast, but we're back here with episode 9. I have some awesome guests here with me today. We're going to talk about their virtual startup academy and give us some in-depth information regarding it. And we're also going to see the personalities and hear the personalities behind it. So you know who I am. I'm David. I am the host of this. We're doing this recording here at the LTD Media studio. And with me right now, I have Kirk. How you doing, Kirk?
Doing great, David. Thank you very much for having us here today. We're really excited to be here and to share virtual startup with you.
It's a pleasure. And also, we have somebody here via Zoom. This is our first Zoom meeting podcast. We have Gregory here with us. How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing great. Welcome from California. Great to be here. Thanks a lot.
How's the weather?
Man, it's about 80 degrees right now. There's not a cloud in the sky. The golfers are zooming past my back window. It's a great time.
Oh, you got a golf course right there, huh?
Yeah, my house is on Canyon Lake Country Club on the third tee. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for being here with us, Gregory. We appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Yeah, so I'm going to just kind of jump back and forth to you guys the best I can with these questions so we can get the information out to the listeners and hear about this cool stuff. The first thing I like to start with is talk about your product or your venture, right? Mm-hmm. So you are part of this Virtual Startup Academy. Am I saying it correctly? Is that actually what it is?
Yeah. So Virtual Startup Academy. Greg, you want to kind of take this one? So the genesis of Virtual Startup Academy?
Definitely. So a little bit of background. I'm an entrepreneurship teacher. I've taught entrepreneurship for 5 years. I was an entrepreneur for 10, 12 years before that. A couple years ago, we started teaching with project-based learning in a virtual environment, which is a pretty new thing in the education world. Last year, we really kind of figured out, and I realized that I needed to reach more kids. I had about 75 kids in my class at the time, and they loved it. They completely loved it, and that's where all this started. So I started building what is now known as Virtual Startup Academy, and basically what we do is we teach kids entrepreneurship and leadership. We can do it virtually. We can do it in the classroom. We can do it in a hybrid model. In the age of, COVID and all the stuff that's happened since then, we really felt that it was essential to be able to do that. So, kind of in a short couple sentences, the courses we offer include entrepreneurial courses, both from a social entrepreneurship perspective and a business venture perspective. We've got courses on IT design. We've got courses on finance and visual design, and also videography. So really what we're trying to do is we're trying to teach students, what they need to do to launch their own startups, completely, which is something that I think is pretty new. We definitely have, some entrepreneurial programs around the country. We kind of took a look at all the things they did and figured out what we could do better. That is how we put together our program.
Right on. That's incredible. I like the things that you're covering in there. You're talking about how there's really no program like it. I haven't heard anything like that yet, where you're actually educating the people on the full process of starting up a business. And you mentioned one thing in there in particular that I really like to talk about, and that's leadership. Can you give us a little more about the leadership part of this?
Absolutely. So all of our courses are team-based and collaborative and designed to teach kids how to work together, either in a virtual or in a classroom. So traditionally in education, at least how we're taught as educators getting our credentials and our master's degrees, is we're going to lecture. Okay, we're going to give you some time to work on some independent practice. We're going to give you some tests. We're going to do some quizzes, a couple little graded assignments, and then that's the end of the story. So unlike that model, kids come into our class and they're immediately put on to collaborative projects. They're put into teams. They solve problems together in an online format. That's how we conduct class. So it's really about empowering the students to run their own classes rather than take direction from a teacher and answer questions. So through that process, students learn how to lead each other. They learn how to work together effectively in teams.
That's important.
And that's something that I haven't seen in education until now.
Yeah, that's important, putting them in that position where they're working with teams. So when you're working with teams, there's a lot of other components that are included. You have to communicate goals and the objectives of what you're doing with your team, because if you don't, what happens?
I mean, everything starts falling apart, right?
Yeah, and you get nowhere.
I kind of want to piggyback on some of the stuff that Greg was saying there,
Yeah.
because I mean, being able to watch kind of from a distance, right? Like we're virtually starting up Virtual Startup Academy, right? Like so we're working with distance between us. But I've been watching Greg and his interaction with kids, and the success rate that we're having is just insane. Like we just had some kids going through the program that generated a business plan and a budget in 2.5 hours on their own. Now, I'm a graduate of the McGuire Entrepreneurship Program over here at the Eller College of Management at the University of Arizona.
Oh, right on.
I can tell you that was a much more kind of intensive. I mean, there's a difference when you're teaching high school entrepreneurship and you're senior level in college.
Yeah.
But to just the amount of collaboration that takes to put that kind of plan together, even loosely, for kids to be able to do that in 2.5 hours is just, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
Because that just shows so much collaboration, so much active ideating and just real-time creation that it's just so cool to see that at the high school level.
Yeah.
I think so many times these kids, go through high school and the CTE program, like historically, is really built for like, how do we get you into a career, right? Like what is a career? What are some skills that we can put you into a career? This is the TikTok generation now. Like we see people creating entire businesses out of like skits or a persona or a silly product, or I mean, it can be anything these days. But instead of stumbling upon it, we can really start teaching these kids how to create that, like how that doesn't become an accident, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of creators out there that are working on like, how do you make something viral and not just being just an accident, right? Like how can you be repetitively viral? And so there's these algorithms and there's these skills and there's these ways of teaching and approaching things that just they aren't being taught in school.
Yeah.
And so we're really opening the door for that for these kids, of saying like, look, let's get together, let's open our minds up, let's chat, let's talk. Here's the basics, run with it. But then we're also allowing them to apply that to their community in really cool ways. I mean, it's just really neat. I'm so excited for these pilots that we're going to be running this next semester that I'm just chomping at the bit. I hope you can hear the excitement, because I'm like, I just want to jump out of the chair when I'm talking about it.
Yeah, you guys, just what I've seen in the school systems, that I've been around in my professional career and coaching and stuff like that, which, Gregory, I saw that you're a coach. Yeah?
Yes, sir.
That's
I've
awesome.
Been a high school football coach for 10 years, defensive coordinator for like 4 of them.
We'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, the current educational model doesn't fit for what's going on today, like you said. So you've kind of opened this door for all these other opportunities, and you're giving them the information they need to make it happen. Because the reality is a lot of these influencers we've seen online and the ones that are doing really successful, if you look at some of their backgrounds, this was intentional for most of them. Like there's a lot of work that went on behind the scenes to get where they're at.
Right, like we never heard of them, right?
Yeah.
But they were out there like grinding and working on their craft for a year and a half. They were just in stealth mode, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boom, they hit out with this video that it looks really spontaneous, but it's like that tip of the iceberg, right? Like, and it's just this kind of entrepreneurial cliche of like, there's no such thing as overnight success, right?
Yes.
And that is so true. And I think so many people miss that. And today it's evolving, right? Like, because it can happen so much faster now. The barriers to entry and the barriers to exposure are gone, right? Like here in this studio, you could, we've got stories of huge entertainers that, look at, all the tattoos on his face. Come on. Of course, I can't think of his name right now. This is Greg. Come on, help me out here, man.
I don't know much pop culture in this decade.
Yeah, I know. Like,
Tattoos over his face.
What's that?
What is he, a rapper?
Yeah, he's just like the most fun guy, and he created his album in his house, right? He put it up on Spotify, and now he's huge.
Talking about Lil Pump.
No, he's the. Oh my goodness, I think he's from Texas. This is killing me.
We gotta
He's
look it up.
huge. He's huge, and I
We're gonna
can't
have to
think of
find
his
out for
name
this
right
man.
now. Everybody's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is so old. You can't think about this guy." Now,
Talking about Post Malone.
yes, Posty.
Oh, okay.
Posty. I'm like, this guy's got
I was
this
like,
great
wait,
little
Texas?
nickname. Yeah, I'm
Post
like
Malone.
Post Malone. Okay, there we
Yeah.
go.
But did you
So-
see one of his early videos? I came across one not too long ago.
Yeah.
Where he didn't have tattoos.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
It's-
So he
it's-
was working at it for a while.
Yeah, but so like he's working at it, he's just grinding. He's in his mom's house, like just working on this stuff, and then all of a sudden, one day he's like, "Fine, I'm going for it." Like he just puts it out on Spotify. Boom, game over.
Yeah.
Like who's running that corner of the music market better than Posty?
Oh, he's
right
a rock
now,
star.
right? Like
Yeah.
absolutely. He went from bedroom in his mom's house to put my link up on Spotify to record deal.
Yeah.
Like in 24 hours,
Yep.
right? Like I mean, just boom. But that the build up, the craft
Yeah.
was the lead up. But since when has there not been a lead up for a musician? And when has that opportunity to just say, "Oh, post on Spotify," been there?
Yeah, it's open. Like you said, there's
Like
no barriers.
there's no
now.
barriers. Like go buy your URL. Like these kids in class, okay, go. Here's how you go and be a cog in a wheel, right? And a part of a big machine.
Yep.
And all this great, that'll go the way that we've all seen it go for the last 50 years, right? And we see so much, career movement today because there's so little loyalty at the corporations because everything's gone to the shareholder model, right? So what we're trying to kind of instill in these children and these students and these young adults really is look that there's options. Like you can do this for yourself, and not only do you do it for yourself, but you end up kind of becoming a part of your community and a part of this rising tide, right? Like that
Yeah.
old adage, "The rising tide lifts all boats." Well, what we need in America right now is this like a small business revival. Small businesses are really what impacts and grows a community.
Backbone.
Backbone,
Yeah.
absolute backbone, right? Like, so that's where you get your families and your schools and your, the community. Everything that's in the community goes into a small business.
Yeah.
That was the big pushback for Walmart, right? Like, it was taking over all the mom and pops. It was getting rid of the community. And in the name of progress, there's a Walmart everywhere.
Yes.
But now that we kind of have the ability to look back on that and turn around and go, well, wait a minute. Maybe they were right. Like there's this degradation of that community connection. So how do you get around that? I mean, I'm not necessarily we're going to try and teach these kids how to beat Walmart at that game, but to be able to create other sustainable businesses in their area where they're able to hire and grow and improve the tax base, improve the community. They need to understand that these things that's how it works, right? And it's not something you get exposed to. It's barely something you get exposed to in college.
Yeah.
I mean, in the business school you do, but there's a lot of that outside of the entrepreneurship model is just the traditional career track. Here's the skills to be an accountant. Here's the skills to be a finance guy. Here's the skills to XYZ, right? To be a marketer, to do this, to do that. Even the marketing side of things, it's moving so fast. You can learn the foundational stuff, but you better be on top of the pulse because it depends on which social platform is the new one.
Yeah.
And that changes with the direction of the wind.
Yeah.
So.
And with the marketing too, it's cool because like even in real world, right? We talk about building relationships in person. Like, hey, if I build a relationship with this person, he has a pretty good following in life, right?
Right.
Like he's got a good amount of people that follow him that trust him. So if some or her and they say, hey, this is a good place to go to, right? You have that like network. Well, it's the same thing online. So if you can get included, I guess you would say, or have people or networks online that will do the same thing for you that have substantial followings, it's important to be able to build those relationships online too, along with the regular marketing. Oh yeah, you can do your ads, you can do your posts and stuff, but you still are going to have to make network connections at a personal level online, which is really important.
And so part of the curriculum that these students will go through is he really Greg just kind of mentioned the kind of social entrepreneurial side of it. And in a lot of that is we're going to kind of stuff these kids into opportunities where they're going to be able to do some charity work in their communities.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that network, that building and that connecting, it's baked right in, right? Like, so these kids have to complete the course, to grow, to get the A.
Yeah.
Are going to have to go out there and talk with the community. They're going to have to meet real community business leaders. They're going to have to talk with the people at the pain point and the people they're going to become the fulcrum that can fix it, right? And so they kind of got to figure out the pain point and how to win. And so then they become that mechanism that changes that.
Yeah.
And then at the end, not only have these kids learned an incredible amount about business and community, but they've made an impact. When they turn around, they see their footprint in an area where good was done. That's so big for kids. That's so much confidence. That's so much like just real world experience that they can carry forward. That just, look, I did that.
Yeah.
Like somebody was hurting, there was a problem, there was a need, and me and my group were able to put our heads together and fix that.
Yeah.
And fill that need, and good came of that. I can make a difference, and I did. And having that coming out of high school, game changer.
Yeah, that's
Right? I mean, just absolute game changer for these kids, for communities. And I mean, Greg and I kind of laugh and talk about it, but I mean, game changer for college application programs. You know, when people start seeing VSA on things and like, wow, these kids have done this. Wow, that's pretty incredible. Yeah. Like, it fucking puts you right on the top of the pack there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's such a cool idea. And so Greg and I, interestingly, have like been like life buddies. His mom's my godmother, vice versa. Yeah. So like we're god brothers, and like some of my earliest memories have Greg in it. And Greg came to me with this idea like not that long ago, and it's planted this little seed, and I was like, man, that's really cool. That's right up your alley. And as we kind of were talking about it, and then I'm talking to him the next day about it. Then I'm talking to him, and then I'm texting, and ideas are just popping out, and we're just going back and forth, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess, I'm in. Yeah. Like, it just is such a great idea, and he's just the perfect guy for it. I can just see how it kind of grew through, like, Greg's path, just made the soil right for this thing to grow for him, and it's just been awesome to see it just continue to grow. So,
yeah,
again, I'm kind of feeling like a hype guy for it right now because it's just we work together. I see it, and I'm like the business end of it, and I'm the projections guy. I'd hate to say it, but I'm also the Excel guy. Like I like kind of the nitty gritty mechanical parts of business. And when I'm going through that stuff, I get drawn out of it. Like that's the stuff that I like, but I get drawn out of it because I'm so excited about the actual impact, right? Like the end result is so exciting.
Well, that's just passion, man.
Right.
And you got to have that to do this. You got to have that passion. It's got to be in your blood. It's got to be in your heartbeat. You got to be just feeling it all the time.
When your feet hit the floor, you're just like, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've explained what it is. We've got a really good idea. Man, I'm really excited for you guys. Like just as a personal opinion, I'm really excited for you guys. I think it's one of the coolest things I've heard about probably on the show so far. Before we get into the virtual startup academy that we're talking about, things are happening in your lives. You're going through things. We're growing. We're progressing, which leads me to my next question is, and I'll start with you, Greg, your influences. What's your influences to doing this?
Definitely. So in the business world, my influence has always been Steve Jobs. There were a lot of flaws to the man, obviously, but just kind of the path he took. A lot of the things that he talked about, especially in his second go around in the 90s, kind of leading up to the iPod and the creation of $1 trillion company. A lot of his quotes just resonate with me. You can never connect the dots looking forward, only looking back. That's like the biggest one because I'm a really visionary person, and a lot of the times I lose track of the moment. I try to start connecting dots in the future, and seeing what we can put together, and I think back to those type of quotes that bring me back to the present, which is where we need to live, in order to make it happen. So he was probably my biggest tech influence. I started a couple tech companies back in the early 2010s, actually with a good friend who lives in Tucson. He's now an artificial intelligence engineer and probably the most brilliant person that I've ever met.
Wow.
That's not me, by the way. just gonna go ahead and clear that up in case the listeners are like, "Wow, is that a like compliment for Kirk?" No, it's not. It's not. That's not me.
Oh.
Yeah, and then just in the education world, there are a couple, older, more experienced people. One of them was one of my professors from grad school. His name's David Stevens. He's got a grad school neuroscience and trauma for education, and I've chatted with him for a couple hours a couple weeks back, and that it just really blew his mind what we're doing, and that I remembered all the things from his classes 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some people influencing me in terms of like curricular influence. I started teaching entrepreneurship with direct instruction, and I was doing all right, I mean, I basically had a set of slides, and I told the kids a bunch of great information about business. And, at the end of the semester, we spent the whole year, really the whole year, teaching them stuff. And at the end of the semester, they wrote business plans, and that was the end of their story. And then at the current school I works with a bigger network of schools around the country and a massive corporation behind it. And I met, the lady who really brought me into project-based learning. And that was probably the biggest influence in education I've ever had. Because project-based learning is a complete paradigm shift over what we're taught in grad school.
Yeah.
Because, like I said before, we give lectures, we give tests, and kids forget everything. And what we really want to do, is empower kids to control their own destiny. To control their classroom and do things. And this PBL specialist that taught me all of this, that's what I learned from her. And, that's where I want to go with education. That's where I want to go with classroom management and pedagogy, because, I mean, I want kids to have fun. Like, I want to have fun. You know what I mean? It wasn't really that much fun for me to stand or sit, in my case, in front of a classroom for 48 minutes, right, and teach them all the stuff I know about business, because they don't care. It's not a big deal for them.
It's not real until they're applying it.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not real, right? But when they teach each other these things, and when I give them a project, and they're like, oh, man, like, I don't know anything about this, like, what do I do? Well, let me go search the internet and see what I can learn. And then let me put something on paper. And then, like, when I realize that I don't really know what I'm talking about, let's talk to Mr. Keele. And then, like, that whole feedback model is a complete, revision, and it's a new way of thinking for these kids and for the teachers involved. And, that's kind of where I see my influences on those three levels.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. We really appreciate it. Steve Jobs, and that's a big figure. Yeah, there's a lot of influence from that man. What about you, Kirk?
Oh man, you think I'd have a better answer because I could just sit here and think about it the whole time that Greg was talking, but I was just sitting here watching him talk, going, "Yeah, that's good."
Yeah, I know. I was like, just in the zone and like, wow.
Yeah, all the agency that these kids are gonna get, and, that's just now they can actually use it. They're not just listening. My mind just went on down my little passion road there.
Yeah.
My influences, Jobs is probably up there. Except I'm not really an Apple guy. Don't at me. I'm just not an Apple guy. For my time in the app world, playing the iOS sandbox was always a pain. So we moved over to the Android world pretty quickly, and I haven't really looked back. I think my influence coming from the entrepreneurial world, I mean, I've done real estate. I'm in real estate. I've done tech. I've done this. I've done that. Now, Virtual Startup Academy is kind of going back into that tech, but now we're adding the educational aspect to it. I get inspired when I'm around inspired people, right? Like, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a Steve Jobs or like have that whole thing, but I like the fact that I'm in a studio here with LTD and that this is growing and you're doing it. And it's that gets me fired up. That's an influence to me.
Yeah.
So I think that when you can kind of bring it back down to digestible things or things that you can actually touch, like your world becomes a little bit more accessible and real. So I try and keep it down off of the Steve Jobs influence. I mean, both my parents were entrepreneurs. My dad did time in the Navy, then McDonnell Douglas. Then when the missile systems were shut down, started a used furniture business. Went from one end of a spectrum to a complete different thing, and just hit the ground and ran with it, and did really, really well with it. My mom built an audiology practice for herself, and later in life, and just did really, really well with it. But I saw all of that sacrifice. I saw all the work, right? Like the long hours, the stress, the questions, the doubt, and then the overcoming of that. And so when I see entrepreneurs that have made it, have chased their dreams and are approaching it, or they're going after it, that to me is influence. That to me is, it's exciting. It gets my blood pumping. Going back to kind of some of the stuff that Greg was talking about at the University of Arizona at the McGuire program, had a lot of great mentors. Jim Jindrick was my group's mentor, just awesome man. He had a lot of influence on me, and he was very real about entrepreneurship, right? And so a lot of that stuff where I'm not really necessarily looking up at the Steve Jobs, but looking around. And if you start really looking into your community, you'll see so many people doing interesting things.
Yeah.
that it gets a little bit more interesting than the big ones, you know? So, I mean, I'm a weirdo in that sense, but that's kind of how I approach it. If you look at the, kind of influencers world right now that I'm kind of talking about, and I peek around at that. We were kind of talking about Twitch before we started the podcast, and I've kind of got my ear to the ground listening to where the Buffalo are running in that situation, and you see all of these people like we were talking about that just blow up out of nowhere, and that's a huge influence for me right now. I look at all of these things and like, how can we boost more of that? How can we help people utilize this? I mean, truly, it's unique. We've been talking about it since the internet became a thing and the .coms and all of that. But it's gotten to a point where you can just drag a website together. Just click on this. Oh, I like this. I mean, you can get your business site up and running for yourself with like Wix or something else, or whatever. Or you can hire a group to do it for you. But it's so fast. What used to take months takes days, and just the things that you can accomplish are incredible. So I mean, those are the things that kind of spark me up and get me going. So I don't want to run too far ahead with any of that, but yeah, my influence is kind of that entrepreneurial spirit. It's just that where can I find it? Where do I see it? People that are starting big things and just love it and drive for it. So
yeah. I mean, being around those people, they're always looking for ways to do things better. They're the passion you see when you're around people that are passionate about something, you can't help but have it rub off on you. And then even if you haven't found something at that point, you're probably going to start thinking, wow, I want some of that. I want to experience that. I want, what can I find that's passionate? What does the world need?
Right.
How can I connect those two together? So,
and so that's that question, right? Like, what does the world need? The pain point. I don't really remember any time in high school where that was really something that was brought up.
Yeah, that question?
Yeah.
I never heard it. Did you?
I mean, like, how old were you when you heard, find the pain and that's a business,
Yeah.
So to be able to put that in front of a kid when they're like 16, 17, and I think back to when I was in high school and that, I mean, you've got such a perspective that's different from an adult, right? Like, I mean, so you're seeing the world in a different way. And that is such an advantage, I think, for these kids because they represent a huge chunk of the market.
Yeah.
And they know exactly that's what I'm kind of saying, the TikTok economy, right? Like, things are changing on that level because they have the direct input to all high school / young adults / 20-somethings.
Yeah.
I mean, boom, it's all being fed to people through, social media. That's why when people talk about ad spend, it's not about cable TV anymore. It's about Facebook or Instagram or,
Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
So it's
That's what we do at the company. We're trying to get
get
people to move to that platform.
So I mean, TV is a dinosaur anymore.
TV is the new radio.
Right.
Like,
if you can even call it radio anymore. I mean, people are podcast is the new radio.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think this format is even dominating so many others because people are so into on demand right now.
Oh, it's growing. It's growing so quick. You could just go on and, hey, what am I looking for? I want to hear about, some leadership, right?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they're like, hey, I want to hear more about Virtual Startup Academy.
Yeah.
They're searching that. But, the idea is that people are going out and they're a la carte getting their information. They're going to go find this podcast, for people that are changing industry, right? They're going to go listen to Joe Rogan if they want to hear, some, crazy, off tangential thing that also throws in a bunch of pearls in there that make you just go, whoa.
Yeah, always. Every episode.
You kind of end up feeling like Neo in the Matrix there. But people you don't just have to sit through somebody else's programming anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can just reach out and grab what you want. These social media platforms are building your own little, echo chamber bubble around you of all the things that you like and feeding it to you constantly.
Yep.
So why would you spend your money elsewhere? I mean, that's where people
a good
are.
question, Kirk.
Right. I mean, right. But I mean, like, the other thing is, like, I mean, that's one of those things of businesses changing, right? So you look at any marketing book and they're still talking about the P's, right? Product, placement, price. Okay, great. Those things are still important. Nobody's going to see your stuff if it's in a store window unless you're in like some small town. You need to put your stuff out there where people are spending most of their time. So I said I worked in tech, right? When the iPhone had just come out, I was over in San Diego. I was working with Qualcomm, working with the Connect program there with UCSD, doing some really cool stuff. But I mean, so the iPhone was brand new. I'm walking down the boardwalk. It's sunset. I start counting people as they're walking by the boardwalk. I'm watching the sunset because I guess I'm this old soul traditionalist. But here's these people come by, and I literally counted out 100 people, and 70, I think it was like 73 of them were looking at their phones, not the sunset.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, this was within months
Yeah.
of the iPhone coming out. I ended up going to they called it the Smart Services Leadership Conference. That's a mouthful. and was in the room with the CEOs and the decision makers of AT&T and Sprint and all of these big tech companies and how they were going to use the smart services world, right?
Yeah.
And I actually kind of brought up, I'm like, okay, well, everybody's talking about attention and screen time and retention, right? Like, how do we keep people just glued to their phone? And I actually was the guy in the room kind of going, can we do about reducing that? Mm-hmm. Like, the world is still happening around people, but we don't care anymore? And I brought up that, I just counted people on the boardwalk, and 73 out of 100, 73% out of my sample size, prefer to look at their phone than a sunset.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that was, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, how the veracity of content coming through people at these social media channels has not gotten less. Mm-mm. I mean, if anything else, it's become more addictive in some senses. So, I mean, the marketing channels have completely changed. And like I said, you want somebody to look at your stuff, you need a viral post. Or you need to actually develop an ad and create the, ClickFunnels are huge now and everything else. It's all of these new strategies that, 5 years ago, there was only a few people out there that even knew what a ClickFunnel was.
Yeah.
So it's just this insane amoebic space in the world that keeps growing and changing, and it's really interesting, and it's kind of cool to think about what happens if you start shoving teenagers into that space and saying, what kind of damage can you do here, right? Like, look around, because what are you guys out? If you all collectively put together $20, you've got enough to buy a URL, put together a website, and you could be doing something, by the end of the week.
And you can share it for free.
Yeah. Right.
Just to start, start sharing it on social media and stuff.
Yeah. Make your own silly videos on YouTube and put your logo on it. Like, it's so fun to see what these kids are going to run with. And I don't know. I just think, like, it's going to be wild. It's going to be fun. And it's going to be really cool to see what these kids do, because I really do believe that these generations are being undervalued. I think, we talk about, millennial this and that, and, there's a lot of this stuff going on. And then I don't even know what the other generations are. I'm so old. I'm this, like, elder millennial, Gen Xer, really weird. I've got optimism. I'm very cynical. I still like grunge rock, but, T Swift to school sometimes. I can't remember his name, but I like Posty Malone. All this stuff is just, I'm this weird conglomerate of everything. But these kids growing up today have so much opportunity. And we talk about, like, our generation, right? We were kind of the first digital natives.
Yeah.
We grew up with Nintendo and ColecoVision and all these things, and we started learning how to connect cables that nobody else knew how to do. And, now these kids today, I look at my kids. I've got 2 kids, and my daughter is just running my phone and tablets. And she got into my computer last night, which I was not happy. My display was all screwed up. It took me like 15 minutes to fix, and I was really grouchy about it. Luckily, she was already in bed, so she didn't have to hear any about that. But my son can already, like, run the Roku, and he gets to all of his programs and stuff. He's 2. Like, I'm like, okay. Okay. And Steve Jobs, right? Like, one of the most important things that Steve Jobs did was create a UI, that the iOS, the interface that kids could use, right? It was simple, and that was the beauty of it, and that is the beauty of Apple design, right? But it's going to be really interesting to see what these generations that are coming up behind us with their just natural inclination towards the technology. For the kids that are growing up today, like, 3 rocket launches a week is normal.
Yeah.
I remember when that was like a once every 4, 5 years thing, something would be lifting off of our planet.
Yeah, grab the popcorn.
Right.
And,
it was a cultural event.
Yeah.
And now you can just kind of cruise over to SpaceX/YouTube, blah, 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 blah. And, you watch one almost every day that ends in Y, right? Like, so it's incredible how quickly things are changing, and on a monumental scale. And so these kids, armed with entrepreneurial knowledge at a young age, you remove the barrier to that, imagine what they're going to be able to go and do. Mm-hmm. And that's exciting to me. That, again, I'm getting back into the passion thing, but that's just because I love the idea of this. I think that these kids, with that natural inclination towards the technology, towards to be natural marketers, towards that connection, they're connected, they're not connected. We're having this debate, like, are these kids actually connected with each other through social media? I don't know, but they're interacting with a whole lot more people than I was at that age.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure.
They're worried about their image a whole lot more than I was at that. At that age, I was pretty much playing in the mud and, like, ride a dirt bike, and I wasn't really concerned about anything but how much faster I could go, and how bad am I going to hurt myself doing it?
Yeah, no kidding.
But these kids are just they're incredible, and to give them that kind of information and that kind of access to moving forward to create something huge or create something so good that we can't even think about it yet.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Right on. Passion. You got the passion. You got
Yeah,
it for
Greg
sure.
set me on fire with this one. I'm not sure if I love him for it or if I'm mad at him. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. I gotta love him anyway, but yeah.
Hey,
This is
Greg,
exciting.
I got one for you. What is a key piece of advice to listeners that you want to give to them pursuing being an entrepreneur?
I'd say based on my experience as an entrepreneur and as an entrepreneurship educator, it's it's about like what we've been talking about, the passion, right? So, if I'm going to give an entrepreneur a piece of advice, it's figure out what you love to do and what you want to share with everybody in the world, and don't stop until you get the chance to do it. I've been through multiple startups in my day, and I was passionate about a lot of them. But after kind of 2012 or so, 2013, I kind of decided to focus on myself, and that's what I would recommend doing. Focus on, crafting your skill set and crafting your, credentials and whatever it is you need to do in order to be credible to the people that you're going to, go talk to in the future, and run with it. I jumped out of, like my company back in 2012 and went back to coaching football, right? Because I had started coaching football briefly. I loved it. I loved being around kids. I loved hanging out on the field. And I kind of got away from that, chasing money, right? And, I just kind of started over and coached football for a couple years, then went and became a substitute teacher. And then I was like, hey, I really like this. I'm passionate about hanging out with kids and teaching cool stuff, right? So I got a credential, and then just happened to get lucky with my current school. Entrepreneurship is not a subject that's widely taught, and we're about to change that.
Yeah, you are.
There was basically one entrepreneurship job available in my state, and I applied for it, and I got it, and my life has been completely different ever since. And for entrepreneurs out there, it's that one little thing that happens that you can't predict, right? That if you're in the right place at the right time, and you have the right mindset and the work ethic and the drive and the vision and the passion, right? That's how you make your life, right? Whether it's in business or, whether it's in relationships or whatever it is, you gotta seize the moment and live in the moment and, pursue what you're passionate about. Because I didn't do really any startups for almost 10 years because I wanted to wait for something that I was willing to get up at 5:30 every morning to do. And until I had, kind of this vision of what I wanted to do, I was like an 8:30 in the morning kind of guy, right? 8:30, 9 o'clock, because I didn't start teaching until sometimes 12, 2:30 in the afternoon. So I didn't need to get up, right?
Yeah.
But now every morning I'm up at 5:30. What can I do today? Right? Let me take my dog Amber for a walk and let's get rolling. Let's get some coffee. Let's have a protein bar and let's get rolling with the day because something amazing is going to happen today.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to look for as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Oh, incredible. Thank you for that. That's awesome. The listeners are gonna love that. They're gonna eat that. They're gonna eat that up.
It's truth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so there's this kind of concept of when you hear truth, you know it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna piggyback a little bit on what he was saying there. I'm jumping out here on a
Yeah,
limb
no,
and
you're-
assuming that
I'm
I'm
gonna-
getting
I
the
was
same
gonna-
question next.
You knew it. Am I that predictable or what?
It's a format thing. No, so for me, Greg touched on pretty much everything. So that was a hell of an answer there, Greg. Good job. But what it leaves a little bit of space for me to go into is that I think story is just as important as credential. And what I mean by that is, what did that person go through as an individual that made them who they are today?
Oh, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
If you have somebody that's always stood on the peak of the mountain,
Yeah.
that's great, but it's not that interesting.
You don't know the climb.
And it does, right. It doesn't show the climb. It doesn't show the struggle. And it didn't teach them the lessons of the valley, right? I mean, there's huge lessons to be learned in the valley. And if you're going to be in the entrepreneurial space, you got to understand that you're going to need grit, right? There's this entrepreneurial journey is not a gentle one. It is not all, green grassy fields and gentle breezes, with warm sunshine upon your face. Those are actually the rare days, right? And that's why the passion is so important, because you're going to have to get up when your mind is all stormy and dark and cloudy and full of doubt and what's going to happen and what all this. But you need to create your own sunshine in that moment, right? Like you need to be the man on fire in the middle of that darkness to go, no, I am going to cast this light out there. And although everybody around me doesn't see it, I got to move forward with that.
Yeah, well, you got to help them see it.
Right.
Especially when you start building a team.
They have to be able to see you, and then when they interact with you and they hear your story and they feel your energy, your passion, your love for what it is that you're doing, and they hear the words coming out of your mouth that you're going to change the world, like Virtual Startup Academy is going to change how we look at students in high school and what they're capable of and what they can learn in an entrepreneurial business setting and what that next generation can become. That's all going to change because of what we're doing here.
Yes.
Now, I know that. It's not a question to me. It's something I know. And it seems to be that everybody that we talk to has that light bulb moment too. And so we're following that. We're pushing that. We're going with it because it's going to create real change. But you can hear that.
Yeah.
And so like Greg was saying is wait for that thing. Like I would kind of add to what Greg was saying is learn to say no. Like we're so happy to please people today. You know, you want everybody to like you, kind of like we were talking about earlier, your networks and everything. Yeah. That we say yes to a lot of stuff that we really shouldn't.
Yeah.
And we end up bleeding a lot of our energy and a lot of our time into things that aren't really mission critical. And we end up kind of going, about, you know, you're not feeling on fire anymore.
Yeah.
But if you kind of learn to protect your yes by saying no, then you get to really kind of build that yes. And that yes can become that hell yes that gets you up at 5:30 in the morning, right? You're not an 8:30 in the morning. You're like, okay, bing, your eyes are open. Like you said, let's grab the protein bar, let's get the dog, let's get the coffee, let's go. And I'm holding on to a lightning rod, and I know it. And now it's my job just to get it out there and get it under where it can get struck, right?
Yeah.
So it's time to run. That's the thing that you need to understand. If you want to go on the entrepreneurial route, and I think everybody should, I think it's something that everybody should at least try.
You could do it on the side. I mean, while you're doing
side
your
hustles, right?
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, like, and the side hustle economy, it's, again, I look at everything, right? Ear to the ground, listening for Buffalo. The side hustle that we see everybody doing, look at the reason. Like, why is that a thing? Why are people doing side hustles for Lyft and for Uber and, you know, doing deliveries for, you know, Amazon? I mean, that's kind of changed, and Amazon's changed its model. But the people are doing so many things outside of their original job because single jobs aren't really cutting it in the economy anymore.
No, they're not.
Right? Like we talked a little bit about that shareholder, you know, being the only winner in the economy anymore. And that's the unfortunate position. So, like, why do people need to have a side hustle? Well, because they're not getting all of their needs met by their one job that they're putting, you know, at least 40 hours a week into. Or there's not opportunity for more jobs. Well, how do you fix that? Either you have to create your own business and do your own thing and work for yourself, or you do that and it picks up and now you're able to hire more people and you're able to take care of them in a way that you're not worried about an end game shareholder that you've never met before.
Yeah.
But you're worried about them because they're part of your business. They're part of your, you know, when you create a small business and you're in those early stages, everybody that starts working with it becomes like family. Like, you know everything about them.
Yeah.
And the more that you get that connected in the relationship, the better it grows, the better it works, right? Again, it goes back to that relationship thing. But it's so important to get this mindset out there to kids that you can. And more so today, like we were talking about, than any other time before. Like, it's just go. But they got to find that fire. They got to find that passion.
Yeah, they do. I like that you brought up the word no. I talked to my business partner a lot about this and having guardrails when you're doing an adventure like this and saying no. It's okay to say no if you're feeling like this really isn't getting to my mission here. This kind of pulling me aside. Have the guardrails in place. No, hey, you know what? That's a no. Yeah. You know, and the reality is, if somebody's going to take it personal and get upset with you over something like that, then you probably eliminated a problem now that would really come back to haunt you.
2 birds with one stone.
Yeah,
right?
you're really doing yourself a favor. So that's just kind of how I see that, and I wanted to piggyback off of what you said in there. And all right, so there's a segment of this show, I don't know if you guys have heard about it, that we do, but it involves dad jokes.
Oh.
So my first question is, do any of you have any off the top of your head that you could share with us?
My daughter's been beating me up. She's like, she's got this.
It's like, I don't know.
I've got a lot of non-dad jokes that come out pretty quick in certain situations. I've been building my dad joke game slowly. So I mean, there's some old classics that I've been using.
Give us one. Well, let's see.
All right, so what do you call a cow with no legs?
Oh, I know this.
What?
Ground
Ground beef.
beef. Yeah, ground beef. Hey, someone's not going to know it until they
so I mean, there you go. Or what do you call cheese that's not yours?
What?
Nacho cheese.
Oh yeah, dang it! I knew.
Oh, I
that.
got one.
That one just.
Bing! I think I get a point for that one.
So sound engineer in the back, she was nodding her head and rolling her eyes, so you got her.
Yeah, dad joke gold.
We always when we do these, we always look back to see.
Yeah, you need a victim, right? Like you need a victim to see how you're doing with your dad jokes.
Just waiting for her to take her headphones off. I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, it's just like get out of my studio. I can't handle you anymore.
What about you, Greg? You got one?
Man, I've been trying to figure out this dad joke thing for a long time, and I know girls in the dating world always talk about like, you got any dad jokes? I'm like, no, I don't have any dad jokes. Like, my dad has a lot of jokes, but they're like 3-minute long stories, and I can't remember them. Like, so I really don't. My friend Chris, he's the dad joke master. And I can never remember his dad jokes because I just don't have, I don't know. I'm not funny, and like I have a terrible memory, and it's just, I don't know.
Got a perfect storm against you in the dad joke world.
Like, I got enough. I'm too busy.
I got nothing, man. I got nothing.
No memory space for it right now. I can't.
I need a nap for this.
It's all right. Well, we got a book here, Greg, that Kirk and I are going to dive into right here. It's called Exceptionally Bad Dad Jokes, So Frightfully Awful Yet Wonderfully Spiffing. So, we're gonna read one each from it.
Is this like a don't laugh challenge?
Well, it's if you want to try to be aggressive and not laugh, by all means, do what you got to do. You know what I mean? But if it deserves a laugh and you just can't hold it in, then.
But we'll see.
But we always just check on her in the back on the sound to see her reaction.
Yeah,
like,
okay. If you want to be nonchalant and just have a gentleman's dad joke off, that's fine. You don't want to get competitive about it. That's cool. Thought you said you were a coach, but I mean, I guess I was wrong. That's all right. That's okay.
So we're actually been going through this book quite a bit, and we're almost at the end of it, and we're running out of dad jokes. I'm gonna have to. This is volume 1, so I'm gonna have to get volume 2 pretty soon. Yeah. Oh well, but it'll be worth it. Trust me. All right, so I'm gonna let you do the honors.
Okay.
Just go in there. Just find one. If you don't like one you're reading, go ahead and take some time and find one you like. You want to put out there.
Did you hear about the restaurant on the moon?
No.
Great food, no atmosphere. Ding.
That was a good one. Great food, no atmosphere. All right, he's got another one.
What do you call a factory that sells passable products?
I know this one because I've read it. What do you think?
I don't know, man. That's a tough one.
Satisfactory. I don't think I'm winning here because of the delivery. I don't think it's really the jokes. It's probably
No, that's good. You know, some of them are just really bad, and that's just you got to deal with it. So.
Kind of almost got to mean mug the joke. Really lean into it.
Yeah, like this is gonna be the one.
This is it.
Oh yeah. Let's see here.
All right, give me a minute. I got to murder my joy so I don't laugh at this.
Let's see. Why did the Invisible Man turn down the job offer?
They just couldn't see him.
You got anything, Greg? You got to guess. He couldn't see himself doing it. That's not very good. All right, I got one. I'm gonna do one more. Here we go. This is like just a statement one. I cut my finger chopping cheese, but I think that I may have greater problems. That's bad. Greater.
Greater. Yeah.
That was bad. That was horrible.
That's a kitchen utensil joke right there, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.
Okay, one more. Just
Okay.
because that one wasn't very good. I'll try to do worse.
All right.
How many apples grow on a tree?
A bushel? I don't know.
All of them.
All right. Yeah, okay.
Good one, David.
That was like walking into like a low bridge, like a low hanging door there. Thunk. Duh.
That's it for today.
All right, we're wrapping it up today. Thanks for coming.
All right. Couple more things.
That was fun.
Yeah, we always do that. It's a good time just to change it up. How do people connect with you guys?
Greg, want to let people know how to get in touch with us? How to get connected?
Yeah, It is not a .com, is it a .academy.
Nice.
And I do have a phone number that comes directly to me. I am the kind of dude that answers every single phone call that comes my way. That number is 951-405-1729. And my email address is greg@virtualstartup.academy. Kirk's is kirk@virtualstartup.academy. Man, I think that kind of covers it.
Yeah, we're actually going to be working on the website a little bit. We're going to be creating a form there where you can kind of submit your interest.
Right on.
And we're kind of working on how we can utilize that right now. What we're really pushing for right now is we've got one group that we're talking to in California, and we'd really like to find one here in Arizona as well. A district where we could pilot this. You know, we're trying to really get this out there and put tires on the road in a bigger way. So we're looking for that. So if any of the listeners are interested in or know somebody, have a connection that can help us out there, please go to virtualstartup.academy.com or .com, virtualstartup.academy. I'm still learning this one. It's new to me. .academy,
Yeah. Also,
virtualstartup.academy, and get in touch with us because.
Yeah, and also I don't know if the homeschool
Touch the phone.
market is super market. There's a ton of homeschool students in Arizona, but we are working with a bunch of homeschool charter schools and kind of connecting with homeschool private networks. We do offer these courses directly to students. We have teachers that will teach them live. You do not have to go to a public school or a brick and mortar school in order to experience these courses. There is a form already on our website that connects you with me and every single person who submits that form. I think it's called the summer interest form at the moment. I will get back to you right away. I'm a right away kind of responder.
Nice.
So, you know, with that model, we're trying to get kids from all over the country together in classes, learn about each other, learn about all the different areas they're in, and solve projects across state lines, which is definitely not something that is currently happening. So that's how we're rolling with the homeschool market.
Right on.
Yeah, it's really kind of funny because I'm not from the educational world per se. I was joking with Greg the other day. I was like, I've taught some Sunday school in my past, but that doesn't quite qualify me in any way as an educator. But it's been really interesting getting the crash course into the education world and really kind of seeing how it's really trying to evolve. Like, they know what they need to do. They're just so deeply entrenched in the ruts of how they've done it.
Well, that's the key thing right there. Is
Right.
How this is how we do it. You've got a whole group of people that you've got to convince that say, well, this is how we've always done it.
Right. And so, and so there's this there's this massive book out there called Diffusion of Innovation. And it just talks about how we can come up with the right way, or we can know how to do it right.
Yeah.
But it just takes a while for that ship to turn. Like, one of the biggest examples that was in that book is, you look back at the British Navy, and they had all of these sailors dying of scurvy, and it took them like decades to actually start putting citrus on the ships. They knew it would do it, they just didn't do it. And so it's that kind of learning curve of, okay, like, how long are we going to wait until we start doing this the right way? And just the fact that we are able to provide this and do it in a way that's cost effective and it's so impactful for the kids, I think that this is really just, we're really working hard on our side to remove any no. It's just like this we're really trying to bring this in where the districts just go, okay, I see it. Yeah. Yes. That's a yes. Let's go. And everybody that we've talked to as far as parents are like, yeah, I want my kid, in this as soon as possible. Where do I sign up? And so you sign up at Virtual Academy or virtualstartup.academy.
Yeah.
So it's this, really kind of interesting process of how do we get these schools to change, or how do you get the process to change? Just show it to them. Let them experience it. Let them, like, how do you decide that something, doing something another way is better? By trying it.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So that's exactly what we're trying to do here with these pilots is like, look, guys, I know it's different. It's different than the way you're used to doing things, but it's different in a good way. Like, let's try it. Here's the pilot. With our pilots, with the schools that we're looking for, we're offering some pilot pricing so that it's an easy try.
Yeah.
And then from there, we're giving a little bit of incentive to them for letting us pilot at their schools. But it's really about, like, come on, let's put this in front of some kids and let us show you how quickly they take off with it.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the last things I ask on the show usually is, it's about myths about a career and or venture. So I'm going to ask Greg first. What's a common myth about being an entrepreneur that you want to debunk?
I love this one. Everybody,
Juicy.
when they think about when they're not an entrepreneur and they think about being an entrepreneur, their conception is, oh man, I'm gonna get to make my own hours, right? Everybody says that.
Yeah.
And in practical reality, the opposite is true. Because instead of you being able to clock out at 5 p.m., guess who deals with a call at 2 a.m. when someone's server breaks down, or the delivery is late, or whatever, right? So that's the myth I always like bring up when someone asks me that question. It's like, no, you don't get to make your own hours. Like 500 other people make your hours, and you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So,
You're always putting out fires.
You are the
Always.
hours. Yeah.
That's 24 hours a day,
you are
7
the
days a week.
hours.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Kirk? Same question.
Same question. Shocker. Again, here I was just enthralled with and nodding along with Greg. Yeah, that's true. Another myth about being an entrepreneur. That it happens quickly. I think that people, and it kind of goes, but we talked about that already, the overnight success. And this is not to say that things don't happen fast, because they can, but it goes back into that grit and that strength of character and just belief in your project, belief in what you're doing, that passion that drives you forward. And maybe, so let me back up. It's not about the money. It can't be about the money. So that's going to be my myth, that entrepreneurs get into it. Entrepreneurs are rich because they, whatever. Money is a byproduct of fixing the pain, right? And so for somebody to fix a big pain, they need a big passion about that.
Yeah.
So money is actually just kind of a causation of fixing the other thing. And if you can do that right, if you can do that well, if you can do that for a price or in a way that other people just say, yes, this is way better for me,
Yeah.
then you're going to make money. But it's that passion. It's that absolute drive. And so that's one reason that I really do like Steve Jobs is when you watch that man speak, he was like a singular focus. When he was on something, there was no anything else.
Yeah.
And to a fault in some cases. But the myth is that entrepreneurs are just there for money. And Greg kind of touched on it earlier. He was chasing money, right? Like, you're very rarely in an entrepreneurial world going to really succeed chasing money.
Yep.
You've got to chase heart. You've got to chase the problem, and you got to chase that problem with the solution. So I think that that myth of money in entrepreneurism it's a causation of actually fixing what you're passionate about.
Yep.
So that, I guess, it ties back into a lot of the other stuff that we say, but that's how this is supposed to work.
That's good.
Right?
That's a good piece of reality that you
Yeah.
need to know before you're getting into something like this, because there is a lot of work, and he talked about it. It's never ending. He's dealing with stuff. We're all dealing with stuff constantly.
Right.
And you might say, oh, like you said, the hours. I'm 8 to 4. That's it, baby. Then after that, I'm done. I'm kicking my feet up. No.
Nope.
Nope.
And it's funny too, because there's also this myth of like being done, right? Like the entrepreneur that builds it and creates it and then rides off into the sunset, and that's happened. It's out there.
Yeah, you can get bought out.
You can get bought out, and I mean, you could be done, but if you really are paying attention, and I love some of the podcasts or some of the big influencers, Gary Vee is a lot of fun to watch for me, but there's some parts of his stuff that don't necessarily fall completely into my experience. But what I do love about it is that he's very much about following your passion, and I think that's a huge part of this. But also that you got to be doing something that you want to put the time in. Like there's not something that's going to come up and just I'm too busy with this other thing. And then once you get done with that, though, he's very honest about you're going to find something else. Like you're going to fall in love with the game. Like, and that's how you can tell a real entrepreneur in Gary Vee's world is he says, it doesn't really matter what they do. When they get done with it, they're already looking for their next thing, or they've already planned their next thing while they were exiting the other one. Because we get into this weird spot where you love the game, you love the fight, you love the battle.
Yeah.
You get into that position where the fear and the doubt and the scariness, which at first is all very negative and kind of this whoa.
Yeah.
And then you kind of start to find that that's where the growth happens, right? So you get excited when you're in those situations where you're like, oh man, this is so intimidating. But you also know that is the way. Like the only way forward is through. So when you're in that situation, you begin to appreciate it because you know that something big is coming on the other side. So
Is that like a Robert Frost bit?
I don't know. It was pretty good though, right? It wasn't bad.
Forward is through. I feel like I've heard that from Robert.
The only way forward is
in
through.
my head.
I don't know who said it. I'm definitely not the one that came up with it. I can't take credit for it. But it's just a very true. It's kind of one of those like ancient wisdom things, you know, like when you're facing resistance, when you're facing all of that, it's probably either coming from within yourself or, you know, some other, you know, challenge that it's your dragon. Like you have to slay that dragon. That's part of your hero's quest. Your hero's journey is through that trial. So that's kind of where it comes from.
Right on. Well, we're coming to the end, fellas. Is there anything you want to add before we close up this podcast we're doing here? I can't talk today. Even at the beginning, I was like, you know, man. But we made it through.
We made it.
That's the great thing about these is the genuine pieces of where you hear someone just stumbling on their words.
The humanity. And then we've had a couple fun Zoom artifacts with you there, Greg.
Yeah,
where you're talking, like,
and then I'm over here like,
we're both doing that like tech guy thing where we're watching the phone, waiting for it to drop off. We're like,
is it gonna go? It didn't leave. Hey, we kept them though.
We got it. Awesome. Well, I just wanted to say thank you. This is a great studio here at LTD. It's been a lot of fun. It's been very comforting, and thank you for having us on because this has been
my
great
pleasure.
for us to talk about what we're doing. We're very excited about Virtual Startup Academy. And we're really excited to see where that goes when we really get to put it in front of kids. So it's going to be a huge thing, and I'll turn it over here to Greg to sign us off.
Yeah, just thanks a lot for having us on. I had a blast. I can tell Kirk had a blast.
Yeah.
Hopefully your reader or your listeners have a blast listening to us and want to reach out and chat more because I am ready to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and let's roll.
Right on. Yeah, we'll do another episode later down the road. Check in, see how things are going on one of the later seasons. And we appreciate you being here at LTD Media Studios on the podcast with us. It's been a pleasure. Always got the Perrier ready. So thanks to Perrier. They haven't sponsored us yet. I'm still trying. I do that every time. But yeah, if you want to contact these guys, if you're part of a district or you know somebody that might be interested in listening to their pitch and what they got going, I think it's an incredible thing. Just go ahead and look at the information in our podcast. We'll have their links and everything put in there for you. So if you want to reach out to them. Thanks again for listening. We appreciate you. And don't forget to show support. Thanks.
Hi, this is Tammy with Copper Creek Cookies. We've been baking smiles for over 15 years. We can print anything on our individually wrapped logo cookies. What a great way to market your business on our sweet, awesome treats. For more info, check out coppercreekcookies.net.